welcome to the Fertility Conversations podcast. The goal of this podcast is to create more awareness about infertility and to provide support to people trying to conceive. Thank you for listening today, and we hope you will be encouraged. And now, here is your host, Ola.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Fertility Conversations. Today I'm joined by Chris, who is an infertility advocate in the UK. He'll be sharing his journey to parenthood with us today, and his details will also be in the show notes. So welcome, Chris, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Ola. Thanks very much for having me.
Yay. So to start off, we usually say, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So just keep it nice and brief for you. But basically, I'm in the UK. We started our sort of fertility journey, or started trying to get pregnant, 10 or 11 years ago, I would say. Yeah, I mean, how far do you want me to go? Do you want me to talk about? Do you want me to go all the way? I'll just keep talking. So yeah, basically, we started like 11, 12 years ago. Went through that whole cycle of you've got to keep trying for so long, and then I sort of discovered that it was an issue with me, and then we ended up going down a different journey, specifically IUI, and then we were successful. Elsie's now 9 years old, and yeah, obviously we met on Clubhouse, so I like to try and get involved with other people who maybe I can help them with experiences that I've had, people that I know, and just learning as well, hearing people's stories and learning how I can help, and also, understanding other people's perspectives, I think is really important as well. And one of the things that's come up recently is this, I suppose, it actually came out of that Clubhouse chat we were having about, we were talking about what you would tell your younger self. And we were talking about actually the importance of fertility around that 18 to 25-year-old range, and what could we do to raise awareness in that space. And that's something that I'm now sort of keen to try and do more in, so it's good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, good job on the whole conversation and trying to help the younger generation. That's what we want to do, to make sure things are much better for them. So well done, and working to make something happen out of that.
I mean, I'm going to need lots of help, Ola, right? So
yeah.
I'm literally I am not, it's like I'm a doctor or anything. I'm going to be like pulling loads of people's experiences together so that we can have, like real life insight for people who are, because quite frankly, when I was 18, 20, 25, I wasn't thinking about having kids, it's not even it wasn't even on my radar. So it needs to be something a bit left field, I think, to grab the people, grab that age group, grab their attention, because it's the position is quite key, I think. But I'll talk to you about it off another time.
Offline. Sounds great. Thank you. So when you're speaking about, you did all the tests trying to get pregnant. Trying to get pregnant. Yes, your wife getting pregnant. But so what happened from when you were trying and then finding out your diagnosis and then moving forward?
Yeah. So it was a weird one, because as I say, you have to go through you have to try for a period of time. Then my wife had loads of tests, bloods and hormones and all the rest of it, and everything was fine with her. And then they sort of came back to me. They were like, right, you have to give us some samples. And then it wasn't like I could do it. I could basically create the sample and then take it to the hospital. And then I had to do like one a month for like three months. So I remember doing them for more than one. And then I was invited back to see I think I was invited back to see my GP, or I can't actually remember because it was so long ago. But it was basically, look, there is no sperm there. There's nothing, there's nothing in the sample. So you need to go down the IUI route. So it was matter of fact for us. We had an answer. We've been trying for so long, and like the more you try, the more you want a child. And it's not pleasant. We're going through that. Everyone else is having kids. Why can't we have kids? Like, this is so unfair. And yeah, so we but it was really helpful, because it was like, well, this is the problem, so you have to go IUI. And then from there, it was really good for us. We live in Preston. It's about 40 minutes from Manchester. So the NHS, they introduced us to a clinic in Manchester. So we had to go through like a whole process. Go and see like a psychiatrist. Well, I suppose it's not a psychiatrist, like a consultant. They talk to you about your family, about your situation. They look, they make you talk about your age and all this sort of thing. And then you have to go to we had to go to like not group therapy, but like group discussion. So like other parents who were in the same boat as us, not necessarily looking for all donor sperm, some maybe donor eggs, but all in that same boat, older, our age, all couples who can't get pregnant, all sitting around talking to each other. And then we had this one particular time, a mum came in with her son, who at the time must have been about 16, and he was born from IUI. So it's quite cool to actually see the dynamic and ask questions and that right. Of both the mother and the son, which was really helpful. And then you have to go through like the sort of the more I suppose psychological meetings, really, just to make sure that you're like a custody unit, and that you're a match to the process, I guess. And then once you get through that, then I think that was a couple of months, and then we were told, right, you've been matched to a profile type, because they basically take you, and I'm sure actually most of your listeners know about IUI, but for anyone who doesn't, they basically take the profile of whoever, if it's like donor sperm, the man. So for me, 6 foot, dark hair, that is literally it. Dark hair, dark eyes, like full stop. But yeah, the donor profile came back a match, except the guy had blue eyes, and we were like, well, that's fine. Like, doesn't matter. Like, it's cool. And yeah, we were meant to go on the month one, but then we were like, well, we're going away on holiday. We don't want to be like all stressed out with having the treatment and then flying, and I'm being all worried about that, and will the flight affect the pregnancy? And we're just like, right, let's just do it when we get back. So yeah, we went on holiday, we came back, and then they booked us in for the treatment. And then my wife EJ, she had to drive, so she had to wait for a period to end, and then she had to drive to Manchester every morning for like 7:30 or whatever to have her bloods done.
Oh wow!
Every day for like two weeks, maybe just shy of 2 weeks, and then once the hormones hit that right level, they said, right, you're coming back in tomorrow for the treatment. So then we both went, and then that was it. It was cool. Came back, and then well, as I say, I've said to you many a time, like, I am not made for having kids, but my wife is. Like, literally, we were super lucky. First treatment, with the result that we wanted, really. But I remember, because my wife did the pregnancy test, and like, she couldn't look at it. She was like, she's like, I can't. And it was like on the side of the bath, in the bathroom. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm gonna have a look. And I'm looking at this pregnancy test going, well, I know the result. And she's going, well, what is it? I went, well, yeah, I'm gonna look at it then. So, and then I could see it like at the top of the stairs in our old house. Like, it was amazing. And like, we were super, super fortunate to get there so quickly. But yeah, that was 9.5 years ago. Well, 9.5 years ago whilst he was born. So probably 10 and a bit years. So yeah, that's it.
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
So my pleasure. Thank you.
And when you got that diagnosis, I wonder, did you speak to the doctors to see if there's anything that you could have done when you were younger? Would it have made any difference?
Well, what they said was that I actually have a genetic disorder. So it affects like one in. They think they don't really. It's weird. The doctors don't really know that much about it. It affects, they think, between 1 in 4 or 1 in 600 men, where you've got the female sex chromosome in your DNA. It's like women are X. I can't remember. I think women are XX, aren't they? And then men are XY.
And then men are XY. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah. So I have an extra chromosome. I have XY, but I have an extra X. So because of that, I've got like an extra DNA thing in my sequence, whatever. And the side effect of that is that I can't have kids. But as I say, it's a really weird disorder. Like I think one of the things that the doctors offered was, they said, well, we could go in and try and extract sperm directly from like your testicles. Like we could go in and do that, but the doctor said to me, but it's painful. And I remember thinking, God, if the doctor's telling me it's painful, like that, I don't want that. Like that's going to be awful. And I know, obviously, so since speaking to other people who've had that done, I'm glad I didn't do that. It's not even sure. And the thing is about my disorder, the genetic disorder is called Klinefelter Syndrome. And there's like side effects. There's loads of misinformation online. But it is weird because I think in some cases, patients with Klinefelters have been successful through that treatment. So they've been able to extract sperm and then use IUI or ICSI, I think it's called, to then get pregnant. But then in that instance, their child will have the genetic disorder again, plus another allele. And there's side effects like it's really weird. There's, I'm, I suppose, at the very, very weak end. Literally, I've got a little bit of man chestness. And I always collect weight around my waist regardless of what exercise I do. But then there's people, and that's it really. But there's people who have it who struggle with speech impediments and learning disorders, and it's really bizarre really. And I'm not well versed on it. It's weird in the States. I think you can get it diagnosed before you're born, and there's parents choosing not to have kids because they have it. Like it's really like bizarre, but that is another conversation I know nothing about. So to answer your question, I couldn't have done anything different when I was younger. It's just it was what it was.
Yeah, I asked because we're always trying to promote information and educate the younger generation. So just wondered if that could have had any impact. But of course, since it's a genetic condition, then that wouldn't really apply.
Yeah.
And in terms of your experience, and I mean, wonderful. You have a lovely daughter, 9.5-year-old daughter now.
Yes. Yeah. 9 and a bit. 9 and a quarter.
It's amazing how kids say that, right? Like 9.25, 9.5. I'm like, when you get older, you're like, you try to stay younger. You don't try to extend it. Like, you don't try to catch up to 10 quickly. Yeah.
No, you do not.
No. So I wonder, what did this whole experience, what impact did it have in your relationship with your wife? Did it have any impact? Or
I think we've always made a good team anyway. And for us, I guess if anything, it just made us a stronger team because we talked about it. we made the decision together. It was not a, you know, we need to go and get a donor sperm, right? That's fine. You know, we talked about it. I think I had worries about it. You know, I was most worried about telling my parents. But yeah, you know, we just worked through it. Like we talked, obviously we got the help and the direction from the hospital. We told, you know, I can't remember I think we waited until we'd had the treatment before we. No, that's not right. I was going to say before we told our friends. I think we shared a situation with our immediate group of friends, because we were like, regardless of what happens, we want our mates to know where we are and what the crack is, and we want people to know. We want Elsie to be able to, you know, ask and talk about this openly with our friends, if she ever wants to. So I am getting around to answering your question. I've gone off on a tangent, but basically, yeah. I mean, we just kept talking. So, you know, and we are an awesome team. When, you know, so I guess to answer your question, like, it's just made us tighter, really. Which is, but it is really good, and I think in fact, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm going to stop talking. Right, carry on.
No. No, if you have something else to say, you can add it.
No, I think you're going to ask me a question a bit later, and I can add it then.
Okay, all right, not a problem. Well, so now you told me how it impacted yourself and your spouse, and it made you tighter. That's really amazing. Because in some cases, that's not what happens, right? You can't really put a strain on the relationship as well. So it's really glad that that's not the case in your situation. What impact do you think he's had on you, though? Like the whole, you know, finding out that diagnosis, coming to terms with having to use donor sperm, and just all of it. How did it impact you?
I think, or
change you?
It's a good question. I had to ask my wife about this question because I can't remember. It's difficult to remember something that was, you know, almost 10 years ago. And she thinks that it did affect me initially, but then actually once we, you know, I suppose especially once Elsie was born, like all of that worry, and, you know, I was worried about stupid things like, you know, well, I say stupid things. I suppose in hindsight, to me, they're stupid now, but like, you know, like, will the baby like me? Like, you know, so I was like worried about these things. And I was, as I say, I was super worried about telling my parents. And I think I also, when we first talked about doing this podcast, I spoke to some of the friends about, you know, because I remember going out and just getting drunk and telling my mates, like literally we'd be like half cut. So you get British phrase about being smashed. Like the guys, my mate would come back from the bar and I'd be like, right, gents, guess what? I can't have kids. And they'd be like, back in a minute. Like, you know, it was, but, and then, so I did that. Then I had like, literally, I'd be like crying in the pub with my mates going, oh my God, like Chris. But to be fair, I'm quite emotional anyway. So they're used to me being a bit emotional. And then, yeah, so I spoke to my mates recently and said, look, you know, was this a recurring thing? Like, was it a one-off? Was it like, because in my mind, it happened quite a lot. But to all the guys I spoke to, I basically shared it that first time, had my little cry, and then I was fine. And then it never came up again. So I guess it was just me vocalizing it I had to, I'm that kind of person anyway. If I've got a problem, I need to talk about it. And then, yeah, when it came to tell my parents, like I had to tell my sister first, like EJ, my wife, Emma Jane, but EJ for short. Yeah. So EJ and I, we sat down in my mum and dad's place, and my sister was there, and I was like, so we sat down, we told my sister, and then she was like, obviously super supportive and like just happy for us in that we had a plan and that we were able to share our situation with her. And then told mum and dad, and they were like, obviously great, great parents. They were instantly apologizing because they thought it was their fault. So that was a lovely experience in the end, even though I was so worried about it. So once we got through that, then we could focus on moving it forward, really.
That's wonderful. And then you went from all of that, and then when Elsie was born, you later wrote her book for her. That's amazing.
Yeah, because the NHS, they give us a really awful book. It was like a book for kids who were born through donor conception. But it was written in the 70s, and it was like some really awful sexual education pregnancy story illustrated in the 70s. It was horrendous. And you look at the storybooks that kids like to read, and EJ and I, we both just said, this is we cannot seriously consider sitting down and reading this to our daughter when she's 2. It's just not an option. So I just created a version which was for her. So it's called My Story. So that's her book there.
Oh, that's
so we waited till she was 2, got a picture of her at an event, and then we just filled it with our journey. So how all about our relationship, where we met, and then our journey, but in for a child. So really simple, not complicated. And then so she's had that since she was 2. So we used to read it to her, and then something amazing happened. She then wanted to take it. She took it to nursery to show her class at nursery when she was 4. Oh. And then when she went to primary school, she's still there now, but when she was at primary school, she took it in and sort of showed it off as show and tell. And there's words in there that he talks about egg and sperm and how it works and what, but in super simple terms. So Elsie's, she knows the crack, she knows where she's from, she knows where we went to get the treatment, and it's just really good. Yeah, really good.
That's amazing. Really love that. That's really unusual, but really amazing. Well done.
Thank you. And do you know, I didn't even clock that it was a big deal until very recently, where I mentioned it to somebody else, a guy on Clubhouse, and he just sort of said, "Oh, that." He said, he was like, "You did what?" I was like, "Made a book." He was like, "What do you mean?" And then I explained, and he was like, "That's amazing." So we've kind of positioned it as something that I can offer to other people if they're interested, but even if it only helps one other person, then that's cool. I'm sort of working that out, really, but for me it's about one of my really good friends made a really astute observation, which is that because it was for me personally, because as I say, I tell people all the time, I think that it's part of our duty, really, to tell people, about our circumstances, because if they don't know, they can't have any empathy or even relate. They might have, literally, I mentioned it recently to a colleague, and he then came back to me and told me that he and his wife were pregnant through donor egg, and people don't talk about it enough. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just talk about it, just tell people. And I was asking my friend about this, and he said, "Look, the more of a deal that you make about it, as in if I make a big deal out of it when I'm telling people, then they are going to think it's a big deal, whereas it's not." So why make it? So now I'll just drop it in. I just drop it into conversation if it's relevant. If it comes up. I suppose one of the things that used to frustrate me is if people don't know, then they don't know that they're offending you. Like, I used to work with a guy who, he was Asian, and he had 4 kids, and he'd always ask me, when are you gonna have another kid? When are you gonna have another? Give me like a bit of banter, like, she's gonna have no one to play with, blah 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 blah. And I would just smile and nod, like, but really now I'd be like, look, this is the crack, and it's but people just assume that everyone it's as easy for everyone as it is for them, but it's not the case at all.
It's not, but that's what we've been told when we're younger, right? You're just told try not to have sex or you get pregnant, try not to have sex or you get someone pregnant. So when you get to that age and you're like, oh, what's not happening? I thought this is supposed to be easy.
Yeah, I'm not using these condoms anymore. Why is it not working?
Right? Like, exactly. So, which is why it's so important that you keep these conversations going, so people know, not to scare anyone away, but at least you're aware.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's so important. Wonderful.
And also, I think it's really powerful that Elsie it has complete transparency about it, so she can talk to her friends about it. She's not.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. It's just that's what it is. Like,
Yeah. I love that you're so open with that, because again, there's always that conversation about, should you tell, should you not tell? How will people react? How will people treat your daughter or your son? So there's always that, discussion and debate on either way. So when you, before Elsie was born or when Elsie was born, did you worry about maybe not telling, or just telling a few people and trying to keep it quiet? Like, did you have those conversations with your wife, or did you just decide that we're gonna make sure everyone knows?
Yeah, well, what the way that there's a couple of things really. The first one was that when we were with the NHS, all their advice was, be honest with your child about everything, because it builds trust. There's no surprises that can come out. There's no awkward element where you pass the second birthday, the third, the fourth, the fifth, suddenly the 10, and then you're telling them when they're 12. Like, that's just, you can almost see, people have done that, and there's been repercussions. So for us it was, look, we need to be absolutely categorically straight with Elsie, like, about where she's come from, and also because we went through the NHS, there is a stepped procedure. Like, if Elsie decides when she's 18 that she wants to find out more information, like, she has to go through a series of meetings with a psychiatrist. There's another word. It's not a psychiatrist. It's maybe a psychologist. Maybe.
Psychologist.
Yeah. So she has to go through set meetings with those with a professional, and so there was that, which was good. But yeah, what we originally decided was that, I suppose, because one is I felt I didn't want anyone to know. I've only really started talking about Klinefelters this year. I've not ever mentioned it before to anybody, because I think I was a bit a bit ashamed, just not ashamed, it's the wrong word, but maybe a bit embarrassed by it. Like, there's it was a bit of a, I was like, it's not, people don't need to know that, it's not it's not that important. And indeed, Elsie doesn't know, it's not relevant. My condition isn't relevant to her. So that's something that we've kind of kept sort of away until now, me talking about it. I think initially, obviously, I was worried about Klinefelters. I don't want to talk about that, but let's tell our tight friends. We'll tell our family. We'll tell our tight circle of friends that we've got, and then we'll leave it there. And so that's what we did. So we're always told those people. And then as we've moved on in time, And as I say, I've been politely nodding, when it's come up with a conversation, and not really talked about it, apart from when I get drunk, obviously, and then completely shock people into like sudden like silence, and then people either address it or skirt over it as if I've not said anything, which they can't be blamed for that. I've just dropped a bombshell. They go, oh my God, how do I deal with that? To now where I'm much more at ease, and I would literally say it's just been this year where I've just become like more totally happy to talk about it, to talk to other people about their fertility challenges, to tell people, not to pull people up on it, but just to educate people who don't know, and because there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just the way it is. So I think I've answered the question.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
Yes, you have. And in talking about that and male factor infertility, I mean, the fact that it's increasing globally, and of course, I love the fact that you're being vocal about it, and at least speaking about your experience. In your opinion, what else can we do to raise awareness? So even because I mean, I live in Nigeria, and I don't think people even like, even when a couple is trying to, they're having fertility delays and trying to have a baby, I haven't really seen where people, or it's not common, I'm sure it happens, but it's not common where people want to pray for the woman and the man. Instead, it's usually, let's pray for the woman for the fruit of the womb. But again, that's making an assumption that that's where the issue is. But of course, in some cases, it could be from the male. So how are we even starting to create awareness, to let people know, to even get this conversation started?
Yeah, and I think one of the real sort of pluses to me getting to know you in the recent months, Oliver, is that my education of culture in Nigeria has like expanded it like massively, and I honestly like that. Every time we're in a but it's not a simple thing, is it? Because there's a whole denial thing amongst loads of people within the culture. So it's really difficult. And I think in the UK, like one of the things, in fact, the thing, I think, was it that? No, let me just remember. So this year was, I've obviously started a job recently, but for the last sort of 18 months, I've been just trying to get by, basically. I was going to start a job last year, and then that fell through because of COVID. And at the start of this year, I wrote down some goals, like what are my top goals, and I want, and like I like helping people, and I like bringing value, and it was really so that I could really kind of define, well, what is it I want to do, really. And one of the things at the top, the first thing at the top was raising awareness about fertility. And then I went out and I spoke to, a guy from the UK Fertility Network, and then he introduced me to this documentary by this guy called Rod Gilbert. That's Rod, RHOD Gilbert, and he's like a Welsh comedian, very sweary, but he's really funny. But basically, he made a documentary on the BBC about his fertility journey, because he and his wife were trying to have kids, and he was discovering all the stuff that I discovered 10 years ago. But because of his job, he was able to, make a documentary about it, and it's called Him Fertility, HIM Fertility. You can watch it on the BBC iPlayer. It's like an hour, but it's that I watched that in like February or March, and it just really gave me the confidence to talk to other people. And I think literally, if I'd not watched that, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because it really kind of, as I say, just gave me the confidence to be open, really, and try and do what I can to either listen to others and help other people who've going through that problem, but I think, or going through the challenges of fertility. But to answer your question, I think so over here, that's a campaign that they'll be running, in collaboration with the UK Fertility Network to raise awareness of specifically male fertility problems and what to look out for and things. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm sure these things, I feel like they come in peaks and troughs. Like I'm sure there's always, like a testicular cancer awareness campaign that happens, and then it gets forgotten about. So it'd be interesting to see if they can build the momentum. I know that they organise sort of like specifically male support groups through the UK Fertility Network. So if you're a bloke and if you're suffering with challenges with your fertility or your partner's fertility, you can go and talk to other men about your situation, and you can ask questions and get answers from other people. So it's a really good support group that they're building there. And I know, well, I'd like to think there's hopefully scope that they can, I think the original plan before COVID was that they were getting out and, getting out into communities and stuff, and, like trying to raise awareness and things. So that's one thing. It's like we were saying before, you only think about kids when you want to have kids.
Yeah.
And like for me, that was when I was, we started that when I was like 27 or 28. And yeah, but it was not even on my radar before then. Not at all. All I cared about was having a good time. Literally, friends, laughing, playing sport. Like it's just where your world is. So I think, there's lots to be done to try and raise awareness, because there's that when you're that age, it can be really difficult. I'm interested. There's a lady who runs there's a fertility group called Fertility Fest, which is cool. The website's wicked. Like it's really bright, and it's all about, they do lots of awareness around like arts campaigns and projects and stuff, which is really, I think it's really a really good way to do it. But that's just in the UK, so it's I think there's lots to be done. I could just keep talking, but it's the cultural barrier, and I don't, as I say, I don't mean it in the wrong way, but like the element of denial that comes across when you explain to me, and when I read
Stay With Me. Yeah.
There's clearly, like, I can only describe it as denial of some of the realities of making babies.
Yeah.
How you get past that, I don't know. Like it's tough, isn't it? And I think and you know what, the work that you're doing, building awareness and doing these podcasts and getting people to share their stories, I think is a fantastic thing. Like just getting real people talking about what their experiences have been. And because literally one of the things I've seen is you share your story and people are like that you just help them in sharing, and I think it's brilliant. And I think you're building something which you can leapfrog off of. What's next? What are you going to do next? Yeah, it's exciting.
Thank you. Yes, it is. And I love the support group aspect for the UK. That's wonderful, because many times I think men doing this support, and we don't usually have them even having conversations at all. So it's great to actually have a safe space where people can connect and speak about how they're feeling without being judged, which I think is another.
Yeah, there was another one as well. I just mentioned it because it's, again, anyone in the UK, it's relevant. There was a chap recently called Chris Whitfield, who he and his partner suffered a miscarriage, and he went out to find male support and couldn't find any, and he started an initiative called Miscarriage for Men, and that's sort of gaining a lot of. He's doing loads of good work, talking to people. I think he has a support group as well for guys. So if you just search Miscarriage for Men, the guy's name is Chris Whitfield. He's worth looking at.
Yeah. And that's another great point. You noted that. I love what he's doing as well, because many times you look at the female when there's been a pregnancy loss. Oftentimes they don't pay any attention to the men, and of course they've also lost a baby in that procedure. So it's good to also create awareness and support them as well.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that either. You know, if I think about our journey, like I remember our excitement. You know, when we did that pregnancy test, like we were ecstatic. Doesn't even come close to where you are when you get pregnant, especially if you've had challenges getting there. But then to have that taken away, like, yeah, it's awful.
It is. But it's good to keep creating this awareness and support, because many people need it and many people will benefit from it.
Yeah.
So thank you. And if there's any man listening right now that has just been diagnosed with male factor infertility and confused or worried and unsure, do you have any words of advice or anything that you think might help?
I think there's a few things really. The first one will be is that they're not on their own. You know, although it feels like it, and you feel like, you know, no one else has ever been in this situation before, and it's only happening to you, and it's awful, which it is awful. But you're not on your own, and there are depending on where you live, you know, there are support groups that you can talk to, and even like Clubhouse, right? Like that, the group that you run, Ola, for on the Clubhouse on fertility, like it. And I'm like, there's a guy who came on, I can't remember his name, but I remember listening to him. I think he's a bit older, he's like 50 or something, and I was like, what? The guy's a legend. Like, he's just sharing his story openly. Like, there is ways of getting to other guys to ask questions and things. And I think the other one is, you know, you're with your wife or your partner, you know, or your husband, you know, so, you know, it's a lean on your teammate, right? And like, it's weird. I've listened to some guys say that they would never ever talk to their friends about it, whereas I was the opposite. I was like, I need to tell my mates. I need to get their thoughts. And so it might be I'd look at your tight friends, and who could you talk to? And if it's easy, just do what I do and get drunk and then tell them. But yeah. I would, but the theme here is talk to people. You know, whether it's your partner, you know, whether it's your family, if you can, you know, your friends, but ultimately also talk to your partner about the questions. I was worried about all sorts of stuff. Like, I was worried about, you know, would my parents like hate me because, you know, like I'm the last male Dunkley or whatever, you know, like just stupid things, you know, like, but yeah, talk to people. Yeah.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, perhaps they want to connect with you and just speak to you about how they're feeling, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways. You could probably find me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn, or you can go to LC Books. Probably a better thing actually. If you go to lcbooks.com, ELSIE books.com, and then just drop an inquiry into there. It's probably the easiest thing. Or they can find me on your Clubhouse group.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. And as a wrap up, Chris, if you had to go back in time to, I don't know, okay, the age group you're targeting, age 19, Chris, what would you tell him looking back?
Well, I think for my personal circumstances, it would have been maybe start trying earlier. Because if I'd started trying earlier, I would have died. The problem would have been diagnosed sooner, and we'd be a little bit younger now. So Elsie, I'm 39, Elsie's 9. So I'd be maybe a couple of years younger, and the only reason for that is so that I can still be young and fit when she's 29, and and I can still be, or even not 29, but even when she's 20, I'll be whatever I'll be if she's I'll be 4. That's right. So I'll be 50. I'll be 50 when she's 20. And equally 60 when she's 30. And that's the only reason. Just because my parents, I guess they're sort of 60, 67. But that, I've gone off on a tangent again. Do you see that? I just went
you haven't.
down a little. You see that? I just like my brain did over here, back on topic. Yeah.
No, that was amazing.
Yeah, and I think if it was so, because obviously for me, I've got a situation where I just, that's full stop, like, not going to happen. But for if it was me without Klinefelters, then it would be, there's a whole try sooner is definitely the thing, but also that awareness piece, which is a whole other conversation about. It's about starting to think now. It's taking responsibility, isn't it? And starting to think about. It's almost asking the question: if you're 19, what would you do if I told you in 6 years' time you can't have kids?
Right.
I don't know what the answer is. It's just a question, isn't it? I'm not telling you anything. I'm asking you a question.
Yeah.
You can come to your own. The 18 to 25-year-old can come to their own decision about that.
I think that's an important question, because it just gets people thinking and just saying, okay, well, if that's the case, what can I do now? Or what should I be doing?
Yeah, because for us, we were like everybody else who tries to get pregnant. Like, we wanted to have kids before my wife was 30, because in our head we had that as the age, and then it took a bit longer, and actually the age is the cut off. The prime fertility age is 18 to 25.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that's a really important question that we can ask.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris.
My pleasure.
It's been amazing having you on here. Sharing your story, telling us about the book you wrote for your daughter. That is so amazing. Really, that shows a whole lot of love and dedication, just to let her know how much love brought her to be with you, and then to be able to share that with the rest of the world, because you can see how proud that makes her, right? Sharing that story and taking the book to school as well. How many people can boast of their parents writing them a book? Right? So
yeah.
Well done. So thank you so much for all you're doing to create awareness. I think it's really important to keep sharing your story. It's been amazing when I heard it, and every time I hear your story, I think it's just amazing that you share and you're so open about it, because even though you live in the UK, people here in Nigeria and other parts of the world can listen to it and just be inspired, and just again know that there's nothing to be ashamed of, that they haven't done anything wrong.
That's right.
It's just a condition, and then think about the options and see what you want to move forward with. So thank you for all you do, for coming on the show today, for sharing, for inspiring us all, for all the amazing things that you have ahead and planning for our younger generation to equip them and prepare them better for their own fertility. So it's been amazing. Thank you so much. I have been inspired, and I'm sure the listeners have been as well.
Thank you very much, Ola. Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to having you again in the near future. Maybe even here in Nigeria, you come visit.
I know. Well, listen, if it's going to be 35 degrees, I'm going to have to bring a fridge. I'll just bring a portable fridge on some wheels, and I can just get in every 5 minutes.
It was actually funny. At a point in time, about 4 weeks ago, someone had gone to the market and some people had ice tied to their heads because it was so hot.
It's literally going to be me. Yeah.
So, it's not really, it is possible that people do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe you and your partner can come to the UK and say
that sounds better.
Yeah, that sounds better for all of us. Yeah, good.
Thank you so much, and do have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Thank you, Walla.
See you.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Fertility Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Fertility Conversations. If there are any topics you would like to have discussed, please send an email to fertilityconversations@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. Thank you again for listening. Take care of yourself and do stay hopeful.